Questions. Ismail pause. Look around slowly, my dear friends. Let me ask you, Santorin. Do you know how to make a donkey run faster? Questions. You can shout at it. You can pull it, can even beat it. But the donkey will still move at its own slow speed. Questions. But tie a carrot in front of it and suddenly it runs like a racehorse. Here's the big question. What is the carrot in our life? Questions. What's that one secret, that one shift that can make us run with enthusiasm, with purpose, with happiness? Today, questions. I want to share with you that one secret that can truly change your life forever. And if you listen carefully, questions. Maybe, just maybe tonight when you go back home, you will look at your life differently. Body, the secret is simple. Questions. Backhand in this point in right change the way you look at life, and life will change the way it looks at you. We keep trying to change the world, change people, questions, change circumstances. But if we change our perspective, every turn outside begins to shift. Questions. My dear friends, most of us wavery and mourning with the weight of yesterday's problems still sitting on our shoulders. Questions. Something went wrong at work, someone said something hurtful. Maybe the finances are not working out, or health is giving trouble. Questions. The first thought in our mind is often, oh, why is this happening to me? Why me, God? We feel as if life is unfair. Questions. That circumstances are against us and that destiny is cruel. But here's the secret. Life is not happening to you. Questions. Life is happening for you. Every single event, every joy, every challenge, every break is not a punishment, but a preparation. Questions. It is not meant to destroy you, but to shape you into the person you are meant to become. Think of a simple example. Questions. Imagine you are driving to work and suddenly you get a flat tire. You are late, you are irritated, and you turning, oh, such bad luck. Questions. Life is against me. But what if because you were delayed by that flat tire? Questions. You missed being in the middle of an accident that happened just for minutes ahead on the same road. Questions. What looked like a disturbance was actually a protection. This is the perspective shift we need. Life is not punishing you. Questions. It is protecting, preparing, and guiding you in ways you may not understand at the moment. Let me give you another example. Questions. Many of us have faced rejection at some point, maybe in school, in relationships, or in our careers. Questions. Think about a time you really wanted something, you prayed for it, you worked for it. Questions. You were desperate, but you didn't get it. And in that moment, your heart broke. You thought. Questions. For this is the worst thing that could happen. But years later, when you look back, don't you often realize? Questions. A thing that didn't happen. If I had gotten that, I wouldn't be where I am today. That rejection became a redirection. Questions. What you thought was lying cruel was actually life being kind, steering you towards something better. Questions. Something you couldn't see at that time. Life is like a teacher in school. When the teacher gives us homework, questions, we don't always like it. When the teacher gives us exams, we feel stressed. But what is the purpose? To prepare us, to test us, questions, and to make sure we grow. The exam is meant to torture the student. It's meant to evaluate and elevate the student. Similarly, questions. The situations in your life are not punishments. They are lessons. They are stepping stones. Questions. They are opportunities disguised as difficulties. One of my friends once lost his job. He was devastated. Questions. He had a family to take care of, loans to pay, and no backup plan. For weeks he complained, and he felt he'd be betrayed by life. Questions. But because he lost that job, he was forced to start something on his own. He began a small business, which at first seemed uncertain. Questions, but later became very successful. Today, he tells me, if I hadn't lost that job, I would never have discovered my potential. Questions. So-called Trodoji was the biggest blessing in disguise. This is how life works. Questions. What feel like a claw is often life redirecting you to a better path. Questions. What feels like a breakdown is often a breakthrough in disguise, but the secret lies in perspective. If you keep saying, "Oh, why me?" Questions. Why is this happening to me? Then you miss the lesson. But if you start asking, "For what is this trying to teach me?" Questions. What can I learn from this? Then every problem becomes a professor, every failure becomes a coach. Questions. And every delay becomes divine timing. Now let's bring this closer to our daily lives. Suppose your boss shouts at you. Questions. The natural reaction is to feel hurt, insulted, and angry. You may think, but life is unfair. My boss hates me. I deserve better. Questions. But pause for a moment and shift your perspective. Instead of asking, but why did he shout at me? Ask questions. But what can I learn from this? Maybe you realize you need to be more detail-oriented, or communicate more clearly. Questions. Or manage your time better. The shout wasn't a curse, it was a mirror showing you where you need to improve. Questions. Or think about a relationship that didn't work out. At first, the pain feels unbearable. But over time, if you reflect. Questions. You often realize your patience. It taught you self-respect. It taught you the importance of boundaries. Questions. Or it simply prepared you for a person you are truly meant to be with. Questions. That heartbreak was not life happening to you, but life happening for you. Friends, life is a series of moments, some we enjoy. Questions. Some we endure, but both are necessary. If you only had sunshine and net rain, you would have a desert, not a garden. Similarly, questions. If life only gave you happiness and never gave you challenges, you would never grow. Questions. The rain of problems is what makes your inner garden flourish. Questions. The storms of life are what give you roots of resilience and wings of wisdom. So, the next time something doesn't go your way, questions. Instead of complaining, smile and say, but life is happening for me. I may not see it right now. Questions. But I trust that something better is unfolding. This mindset cell will change the way you live, the way you respond, questions, and the way you grow. Remember, when you shift from victim mode to student mode, life transforms. Life is not against you, my friends. Questions. Life is for you, always for you. And when you understand this, every day, no matter what happens, you will live with peace, strength. Questions. That indeed can change your life forever. Question, my dear friends, if you really observe the world around you, you will notice something very interesting. Almost everyone is running. Questions. Almost everyone is chasing. Almost everyone is looking at what they don't have instead of appreciating what they do have. Questions. A child is not happy with his toy because his friend has a bigger toy. A teenager is not happy with his phone? Questions. Because the latest version has just been released. Adults are not happy with their car? Questions. Because their neighbor bought a more luxurious one. And even in relationships, many are not satisfied? Questions. Because they are busy comparing with what others seem to have. The result is this: no matter how much we get? Questions. It never feels like enough. But here lies the secret. Gratitude turns what we have into enough? Questions. Gratitude is not about having everything. It's about realizing that what you already have is valuable, is beautiful? Questions. And is sufficient to make your life meaningful. Without gratitude, even the richest man will feel poor. With gratitude? Questions. Even the simplest person will feel rich. Think of food, something we all enjoy every single day. Questions. Imagine you are served a plate of warm rice, dal, and vegetables. If your mind is ungrateful, you will immediately turning? Questions. But this is so boring. I wish I had pizza. I wish I had a fancy meal. You eat with dissatisfaction and you finish still feeling empty. Questions. But if your mind is grateful, you will turning? Questions. But how fortunate I am that I have a plate of food in front of me when millions of people go to bed hungry tonight. Questions. How fortunate I am that I have hands to eat, taste to enjoy, and health to digest. Suddenly, questions. The same simple plate becomes a feast, not because the food changed, but because your attitude changed. Another simple example, questions. Your home, maybe your house is not the biggest. Maybe you don't have marble floor designer furniture. But think of this, questions. There are people on the streets, people who sleep under bridges, people who have no roof above their heads. Questions. When you walk into your small home with a heart of gratitude, you don't see limitations, you see blessings. You realize, questions. I have a place to rest, I have shelter from the rain, I have safety for my family. I am blessed. Questions. The size of your home doesn't determine your happiness, but the size of your gratitude does. Let me share a story with you. Questions. A man once complained to his friend, I'm so unhappy with my salary. It's never enough. I can't buy what I want. Questions. I can't live the lifestyle I dream of. His friend calmly asked him, tell me? Questions. How much did you earn when you started working? The man replied, only a fraction of what I earn now. The friend smiled and said, questions. So once prayed for has already come true. What you once wished for is now your reality. But instead of enjoying it, questions. You are complaining again. If you continue like this, even if your salary becomes 10 times higher, you will still feel poor. Questions. That is the power of ingratitude. It blinds us to our progress. Gratitude, on the other hand, questions, reminds us that we are already standing on blessings we once dreamed of. Gratitude also has the magical ability to heal relationships. Questions. Many couples fight not because they don't love each other, but because they focus on what is missing. Questions. You don't do this for me. You don't give me that. You aren't like him or her. But at the moment you focus on what your partner does give you their questions, their presence, their small sacrifices, suddenly love feel abundant again. Questions. A simple thank you spoken sincerely can turn bitterness into sweetness. Questions. When we stop taking people for granted and start appreciating them, we realize we already have so much love in our life? Questions. Even in health, gratitude plays a role. You may not have the perfect body. Maybe you struggle with some issues, questions. But instead of focusing on what doesn't work, think of all does work. Your eyes can see the world. Your ears can hear music, questions. Your hands can hold your loved ones. Your legs can walk to places. Millions of people don't have what you have, questions. When you realize this, you stop complaining about small aches and start cherishing the miracle of simply being alive. Questions. There's a beautiful practice I often recommend. Before going to bed at night, questions. Close your eyes and think of three things you are grateful for from that day. It could be as simple as a good meal, questions. A smile from a stranger or a safe journey back home. When you do daily, your mind shifts from complaint to contentment, questions. Instead of sleeping with worries, you sleep with peace. And when you wake up the next morning, life feels lighter, brighter, questions, and richer. Remember this, gratitude is not ignoring problems. It is not about pretending everything is perfect, questions. Gratitude is about seeing the good that exists alongside the challenges, questions. A grateful heart doesn't deny this, it simply refuses to let difficulties steal the joy of what's already present. My friends, questions. The richest person is not the one who has the most money, but the one who needs the least, questions. And the person who needs the least is the one who is grateful for the most. When gratitude becomes your lifestyle, questions. Every small thing feels like a blessing. A glass of water tastes sweeter. A walk in the park feels like paradise. Questions. A friend's laughter feels like treasure. Gratitude multiplies joy without adding a single possession. So, questions. The next time you feel like complaining, pause and ask yourself, questions. The what do I already have that I am ignoring? And when you find the answer, whisper a silent thank you. Because truly, questions. Gratitude turns we have into enough, and enough is all we really need to live a happy, peaceful, and meaningful life. Questions. My dear friends, how much of our time and energy is wasted on things that are completely beyond our control? Think about it. Questions. We worry about the weather, but can we change it? We get angry at traffic jams. Questions. But can we remove the cars and magically clear the road? We get upset because someone spoke harshly. Questions. But can we wind their words? And yet we spend so much mental energy on these things only to end up frustrated, exhausted, questions, and negative. The truth is simple. If you try to control what you cannot control, you will always feel helpless. Questions. But if you focus on what you can control, you will always feel powerful. Let me share a very relatable situation. Questions. Imagine you are stuck in traffic. The cars are moving slower than a snail. The horns are blaring. Questions. And your meeting is in 15 minutes. What do most of us do? We grip the steering wheel tighter. We curse the government. Questions. We shout at the drivers. Our blood pressure rises. Our stress level shoots up. And by the time we reach the meeting, questions. We are so drained that we can't even think clearly. Now, here's the reality. Could you control the traffic? No. Questions. Could you control how others drove? No. But could you control your response? Yes, you could play some calming music. Questions. You could listen to a podcast. You'd even use that time to practice patience or call a loved one. Questions. The traffic was outside your control, but your reaction was completely in your control. Questions. Life becomes lighter when we stop trying to manage what is beyond us and start mastering with within us. Think of a storm. Questions. The wind is wild, the rain is heavy, the thunder is loud. You cannot control the storm. But what can you do? Questions. You can close your windows, secure your home, wear a raincoat, and wait it out. Questions. That is wisdom adjusting yourself when you cannot adjust the world. Another example is people's opinions. Questions. How many of us spend sleepless worrying, or what will people still say? Questions. What will they think of me? But can we really control another person's mind? People judge no matter what you do. If you're quiet, questions, they'll say you're arrogant. If you talk too much, you're irritating. If you succeed, some will clap, some will envy. Questions. You can't control their tongues, but you can control your focus. Instead of living for their approval. Questions. You can choose to live by your values. That shift takes away so much unnecessary stress. Questions. I remember a young student who came to me once. He said, I keep failing in exams because I keep blaming my teachers. Questions. I say they don't teach well, they are partial, they don't support me. And I keep getting more and more frustrated. I asked him questions. Can you control your teachers? Said. No. I asked, but what can you control? He hesitated and said, I guess. How much I study? Questions. How I use my time? Exactly. The moment he stopped blaming his teachers and focused on his own effort, his grades improved. Questions. The outside didn't change, but his results did because he changed what he focused on. The same applies to health. Questions. Sometimes people say, it's in my genes, I can't help it. My parents had diabetes, so I will have it too. Questions. Maybe you cannot control your genetic predisposition, but can you control your lifestyle? Yes, you can eat better. You can exercise. Questions. You can sleep well. Maybe you can't eliminate the risk completely, but you can certainly minimize it. Questions. Complaining about what you can't control only increases despair, but acting on what you can control gives hope and progress. Questions. Even in relationships, this principle is powerful. Many couples waste years trying to change each other. Questions. Wants the other to talk more, the other wants the first to talk less. One wants punctuality, the other wants relaxation. Questions. The constant tug of war drains love. But here's the truth. You can't control your partner's nature. What can you control? Questions. Your understanding, your communication, your patience, your response. When you shift focus from changing them to improving yourself. Questions. Have any returns? Friends, life is like a garden. You cannot control the weather, the sun, the rain, the wind. Questions. But you can control how you care for the soil, how you water the plants, how you protect them. Questions. A good gardener doesn't waste time shouting at the clouds. He works with what he has. Similarly, questions. Wise living means working with what you can control and leaving the rest to destiny or to God or to life itself. Questions. There's a beautiful practice I recommend. Whenever you feel anxious, ask yourself 2 questions. Questions. Is this in my control? The answer is no, let it go. If the answer is yes, then ask questions. But what is the next best step I can take? This practice alone will save you from hours of useless stress and guide you into constructive action. Questions. The Bhagavad Gita also teaches this wisdom. But you have the right to perform your duty, but not to the fruits of action. Questions. In simple words, focus on what you can do, but don't cling to outcomes. Questions. Because outcomes are influenced by many factors beyond your control. You plant the seed, you water it. Questions. You nurture it, that's in your hands. But whether it rains or not, whether the soil is fertile or not in your hands. Questions. If you upset about the result, you will suffer. If you focus on your effort, you will find peace. So, my dear friends, questions. The art of living life is in mastering this secret. Focus on what you can control. Let go of what you can't. Questions. Stop fighting battles you cannot win. Stop arguing with reality. Instead, put your energy where it makes a difference on your choices. Questions. Your attitudes, your actions. When you live like this, life feels lighter, your mind feels calmer. Questions. And your heart feels stronger. And then you discover that even in the middle of chaos, you can live with peace. Questions. My dear friends, we often believe that in order to change our lives, we must take giant leaps, make massive transformations. Questions. Or wait for some miraculous event. But the truth to life doesn't always demand a revolution. Sometimes, questions. It just asks for a small shift. A little change in the way we think, a slight adjustment in the way we look at things. Questions. Can completely alter the way we live. Small shifts in thinking create big shifts in living. Consider this. Questions. Two people are standing by the window on a rainy day. One looks outside and says, "Oh, what a gloomy, depressing day." Questions. The other looks at the same rain and says, "Oh, what a refreshing, nourishing blessing for the earth." The same rain, same weather. Questions. Same window, yet two completely different experiences. Why? Because of a shift in thinking. The rain did not change. Questions. But their perspective did, and that made all the difference in how they felt. Many of us underestimate the power of our thoughts. Questions. But our thoughts shape our emotions shape our actions, and our actions shape our lives. If your thoughts are heavy, questions, life feels heavy. If your thoughts are hopeful, life feels lighter. Questions. And the most beautiful part is, don't have to change everything at once. You just need to begin with one small shift. Questions. Take an everyday example. You're at work and your boss gives you feedback. If your first thought is, "He's targeting me," questions. "He doesn't like me, he's always against me," you will feel hurt, demotivated, and angry. But if your thought shifts to questions, or maybe there is something in here I can improve. Maybe this is an opportunity to grow. Questions. Then the same feedback becomes fuel instead of fire. The boss didn't change. Questions. The words didn't change, but your interpretation changed, and that transformed the impact on you. Or turning of minds. Questions. Many people wake and their first thought is bark, another time day. So much stress waiting for me. Questions. They drag themselves out of bed already defeated. But imagine if instead the first thought, "Oh wow, I got another day to live." Questions. To learn to love, to do something meaningful. The day hasn't even started, but already your energy, your mood, questions, your enthusiasm are lifted. Just that small shift in the way you begin your morning can change the rhythm of your entire day. Questions. There is a famous story of Thomas Edison. After years experimentation, his laboratory caught fire, destroying his work, his notes, questions, and his progress. Most people would collapse in despair. But Edison looked at the flames and said, questions. Thank God all our mistakes have been burnt down. Now we can start fresh. Imagine that mindset. Questions. A disaster turned into a reset button. He didn't allow the event to crush him because his thinking elevated him. Questions. That small shift in perspective gave him the strength to keep going and eventually, questions, to gift the world with inventions that change history. Even in relationships, this principle works wonders. Questions. Suppose your spouse forgets to call you during a busy day. One way of thinking is, but they don't care about me. Questions. I'm not important to them. Either thought leads to resentment. And a way of thinking is, but they must be really busy and stressed. Questions. I'll check in and see how they are doing. Either thought leads to compassion. The action that follows is completely different. Questions. And so is the outcome. A small shift in thought saved an argument and created connection. The same applies to failure. Questions. When a student fails an exam, it is term useless, I can't do anything right. Then failure becomes final. Questions. But if the thought shifts to, but this is a chance to find out where I went wrong and how I can improve. Questions. Then failure become a teacher. The exam was the same. The result was same. But the future changed because the thinking changed. Questions. Sometimes we think happiness is about changing the outer world, getting more money, a better house, a higher position. Questions. But happiness is actually about changing the inner world. If you shift your thought from scarcity to abundance. Questions. From comparison to contentment, from complaint to gratitude, your life immediately feels richer, even if nothing outside has changed. Questions. Here's a simple exercise you can try. Next time something unpleasant happens, pause and ask yourself questions. Or is there another way I can look at this? For example, if you miss a flight, instead of saying, "Oh, my day is ruined," you try saying questions. And maybe this delay is saving me from some sun doing worse. At least I'm safe. Sun has some time to read or reflect. Questions. Doesn't mean you deny reality. It means you choose a perspective that empowers you rather than weakens you. Friends, questions. Small shifts in thinking are like adjusting the direction of a ship. If a ship shifts its path out by just 1 degree, questions. It may seem tiny at the start, but over a long journey, that 1 degree will take it to a completely different destination. Similarly, questions. If you shift your thoughts slightly towards patience instead of anger, towards hope instead of despair, questions, towards learning instead of blaming over time, your entire life will head towards a brighter, better destination. Questions. So don't underestimate the little changes. Don't wait for a big breakthrough. Begin with the small shift. Post questions. Change or why me? To what is this teaching me? Change by have to I get to. A change, but it's a problem too, but it's an opportunity. Questions. And watch how those little mental adjustments create a massive transformation in the quality of your life. Because true life. Questions. Small shifts in thinking create shifts in living. And when you master your thoughts, you master your life. Questions. My dear friends, every single human being who has walked on this earth has experienced pain. It does not matter how rich you are. Questions. How educated you are or how successful you are, pain is a visitor that knocks on every door. Physical pain, emotional pain, questions. Mental pain, they come in different forms. The truth is pain is inevitable. You cannot avoid it, you cannot escape it. Questions. And you cannot bargain with life to not give it to you. But here's the beautiful secret. While pain is inevitable, questions, suffering is optional. What does this mean? Pain's what happens to us. Suffering is how we interpret and hold on to that pain. Questions. Pain is the wound. Suffering is when we keep scratching it, reopen it and refusing to let it heal. Pain is an event. Questions. But suffering is a choice. Let's take a very simple example. Imagine you stub your toe on a chair. Immediately. Questions. There is pain, it hurts, you feel the sharp sting. That's unavoidable. But what happens next? One person may feel the pain. Questions. Sit down for a few minutes, breathe, and move on. Another person may go on and on saying, but why am I so unlucky? Questions. Why does this always happen to me? This house is cursed. This is the worst day of my life. The toe pain may last for a few minutes. Questions. But the suffering created by the mind may last for hours. The event was same, but the experience was completely different. Questions. The same applies to emotional pain. Suppose a friend betrays your trust. The pain is real, you feel hurt, disappointed. Questions. Maybe even angry. But suffering comes when, instead of acknowledging the pain and moving forward, questions. You replay the betrayal 100 times in your head. You build stories around it. You let bitterness grow. Questions. And you allow that one person's action to control your peace for months or even years. The betrayal was painful. Questions. But the suffering is prolonged because of the mind's attachment to the wound. There's a story of two monks traveling together. Questions. They reached a river and saw a woman struggling to cross. One monk carried her across the river. After walking 4 miles, questions. The other monk, clearly upset, said, but we monks are not supposed to touch women. Why did you do that? The first monk replied. Questions. Oh brother, I left her at the riverbank hours ago. Questions. Why are you still carrying her in your mind? That's suffering holding on to what should have been let go. Think about loss. Questions. Losing a loved one is one of the deepest pains of life. That pain cannot be denied. But suffering is when, questions, instead of honoring their memory, we allow grief to consume us for decades, refusing to live, refusing to smile. Questions. Because we feel guilty about moving on. Pain honors the love, suffering dishonors the life we still have to live. Questions. Pain is like rain, it falls on everyone. Questions. But suffering is like standing in rain, the umbrella you already have one in your hand. The umbrella is acceptance. Questions. When you accept pain as part of life's journey, you shield yourself from unnecessary suffering. Questions. Acceptance does not mean you enjoy pain. It means you stop fighting reality and start flowing with it. Even in failure. Questions. This principle is clear. Imagine 2 students who fail an exam. One says, I fail, I'm useless, I can never succeed. Questions. A and falls into depression. The other says, Pi failed, it hurts, but this is a signal to study differently, to put in more effort. Questions. To learn from mistakes. Either first chooses suffering, the second chooses growth. Both have felt pain. Questions. But their choices made all the difference. Post questions. A powerful way to deal with pain without turning into suffering is to change the question we ask ourselves. Instead of asking questions, why me ask, but why me keeps you stuck in suffering? But what now empowers you to take action? For example, questions. If you lose your job, asking the why me only increases anger and self-pity. But asking for what now leads you to update your skills. Questions. Explore new opportunities or even start something of your own. The pain of job loss was inevitable. Questions. But the suffering of hopelessness was avoided because you shifted your mindset. Another way to reduce suffering is gratitude. Questions. Even in pain. Imagine someone with a broken leg. The pain is real, but gratitude can say, but at least I didn't break my spine. Questions. At least I have doctors to help me heal. At least this is temporary. Gratitude doesn't erase pain. Questions. But it keeps suffering away by focusing on what remains rather than what is lost. Friends. Questions. The greatest example of this truth is seen inspiring individuals who have gone through unimaginable challenges. Questions. There are people who lost limbs in accidents but went on to become athletes. Questions. There are people who lost family members but dedicated their lives to serving others with compassion. They felt pain, yes. Questions. But they chose not to live in suffering. They became their power because they refused to let imprison their mind. Questions. Life will never be free from pain. You will face challenges, failures, betrayals, losses, and difficulties. Questions. That's part of the human experience, but you don't have let those experiences chain you in suffering. When pain comes, feel it. Questions. Learn from it. Let it shape you, but then release it. Don't hold on longer than necessary. Questions. Don't let what chapter define the whole book of your life. Remember, is the price of being alive. Questions. To love is to losing. To try is failing. To live is to risk hurting. But suffering, that's not the price you must pay. Questions. That's the choice you can avoid. So my next time brings you pain, then it surely pause and remind yourself. Questions. A pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. You choose to accept, choose to learn, choose to grow. And when you do, questions, you will realize that pain breaks the body, but suffering can never break the spirit unless you allow it. Questions. My dear friends, we often measure our worth by the size of our bank balance, the brand of our car, the number of properties we own. Questions. Or the digits in our paycheck. But let me share a truth with you. When life truly tests you, questions, none of those things come running to your aid. Your car won't comfort you when you're heartbroken. Questions. Your bank balance won't visit you in the hospital. Your expensive watch won't sit by your side when you're lonely. In those moments, questions. What really matters is your relationships, the people you invested in, and the people who have invested in you. That is why I say questions. Your network is your net worth. What do I mean by your network? Not just a collection of phone numbers, followers on social media. Questions, but genuine, meaningful connections. People who inspire you, support, guide you and sometimes challenge you to be better. Questions. People you can laugh with, cry with, and grow with. Such people are far more valuable than money in the bank. Questions. Because while may help you live, it is people who make life worth a living. Let's look at a simple example. Questions. Imagine you are looking for a job. You have skills, you have talent, but so do thousands of others. Now, questions. If you've built strong relationships over time, you've treated people with kindness, shown integrity, questions, and created trust, it's very likely someone in a network will recommend you, guide you, or even create an opportunity for you. Questions. On the other hand, if you've neglected relationships, if you've only thought about yourself, then in times of need, questions, you will find yourself standing alone. The job you get, the growth you experience, often depends not just on what you know, questions, but on who you know. There's a story of a young man who wanted to start a business. He had no capital, no investors, questions, and very little experience. But he had spent years building good relationships with mentors, friends, and community members. Questions. When he finally shared his dream, those very people helped him. Some gave small loans, others gave advice. Questions. Some connected him with suppliers. Eventually, his business flourished. Later, when asked about his success, he said, questions, "Oh, my greatest asset was not mine, it was the people who believed in me." A truly network is your net worth. Questions. But let us not think of this in a selfish way. Building a strong network does mean using people for our own benefit. Questions. It means sincerely caring for others, contributing to their growth, and being there for them when they need you. Questions. It's about giving as much as receiving. If your relationships are built only on taking, they will collapse. Questions. But if they are built on giving, they will last a lifetime. Consider your circle of friends. Ask yourself questions. Do they lift me up or pull me down? If you are surrounded by people who constantly complain, gossip, and discourage you, questions, their negativity will seep into your own mind. But if you are surrounded by people who encourage, challenge you, questions, and believe in your potential, their energy will fuel your success. Questions. That's why choosing your network wisely is one of the most important decisions you can ever make. Questions. Birds of a feather flock together. If you fly with eagles, you soar. If you walk with crows, you peck at scraps. In our daily life, questions, we can see the power of networks in small ways. When you fall sick, who brings you food or medicine? Your friends, your family. Questions, your neighbors. When you feel discouraged, who reminds you of your strengths? Your mentors, your well-wishers. Questions, when you achieve something great, who claps the loudest? Not strangers, but those close to you. Questions. These moments show us clearly that relationships, the true currency of life. There's a beautiful practice I suggest. Every we jest, questions. Pick one person from your circle, an old friend, a family member, a colleague, just reach out. Ask how they are, listen to them. Questions. Encourage them. Don't wait until you need something. Build the bond consistently. Over time, you will see that your life feels richer. Questions, not because of wealth, but because of warmth. Even in spirituality, this truth is emphasized. In the Bhagavad Gita, questions. Krishna tells Arjuna about the importance of being in good association. Because we spend time with influences who we become. Questions. If we surround ourselves with wise people, wisdom rubs off on us. If we surround ourselves with foolish people, questions, folly rubs on us too. Our network shapes our character, our choices, and our destiny. Questions. Think about it. How many times have you made a decision simply because of the company you kept? Questions. A teenager may start smoking not because he wanted to, but because his friends did. Questions. A young student may study harder not because he naturally wanted to, but because his friends encouraged him. Adults too. Questions. Are influenced daily by the habits, values, and attitudes of the people around them. Questions. That's why it is so important to know uplifting relationships and let go of toxic ones. My friends, in the end, questions. Your possessions will stay behind, but your relationships will remain in people's hearts. When you are remembered, questions. It won't be for size of your house, but for the size of your kindness. It won't be for the brand of your clothes, questions, but for the warmth of your words. It won't be for the number of cars you owned, but for the number of lives you touched. So, questions. Let us not neglect this priceless truth. Your network is your net worth. Invest in people. Appreciate them. Support loyal. Questions. Be kind, be present. Build bridges of trust, not walls of indifference. And when you do, questions, you will discover that life feels abundant not because of what you have in your pocket, but because of who you have by your side.